Episode 77 of the Auld Triangle is here. We're back again. The road to Dubai has come to a halt. We've hit the cul-de-sac. The event is over and we're here to talk about Andy Stevenson, Caoilte Barra. A memorable event, a memorable week for Irish mixed martial arts. Didn't get, the luck of the Irish, I guess, throughout the card. We had a great win for John Mitchell and unfortunately a loss for Paul Hughes in an absolute classic in the main event. Unlucky Nathan Kelly was in his fight with Usman Nurmagomedov, and obviously Kenny Mokhonoana was defeated as well by Ibrahimov. We will talk in detail about all of those fights and throw in a little bit of news, fight announcements towards the end of the podcast as well. Boys, how are you doing? I think I just said it to you before we started recording. We're recording this, obviously, I'm not sure when it'll be out yet, but we're sat in for a discussion right away after the fights. I said to the lads before this podcast, I kind of almost had to emotionally regulate myself after that. It was an absolute barn burner. One of the last fights under the Bellator banner turned into be a classic, one of the best, most technical fights that we could have seen inside the, if you want to call it a Bellator cage. I know it's kind of somewhat a PFL event as well, but an absolute classic nonetheless. And even though Paul didn't get his hand raised, he definitely comes out a winner with that performance. And there's an argument there that he could have took it as well, but nonetheless, we'll get into it a little bit more. Andy, how are you keeping? How are you feeling after the event? It was an early smart start for me. It's a kind of unusual time for everybody, mid afternoon for you lads back home. But it was a great kind of. I'd like to, before maybe we talk about the fights itself, is talk about the fight week, because there was a great old build up to it. It came on us really fast after the break of mixed martial arts over the Christmas, and this was a big event. And I thought that they did a fantastic job in building this event into what it was, and obviously the main event delivered. What was your thoughts on how this event was built? I know, they had the Irish and Dagestan kind of narrative, which kind of got a little bit overblown, and I think they cooled the jets after the fight on that kind of narrative, which was good to see. But your overall thoughts? I think PFL have done a really good job in building this up and making this like a big fight feel, and obviously you need the fight to deliver, and it did exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose firstly, how am I feeling? I am all over the place. I'm trying to collect myself after witnessing, I don't know, I don't know if it's just biased because we're Irish or whatever, and there's an Irish fighter in the fight, but that was, to me, was a clear front runner for fight of the year. I know we're only in the 25th of January. There's a lot of fights to come in 2025, but my God, that was just incredible to watch. As far as, the build up to the week, I thought that PFL did a phenomenal job, if I'm honest, in making this feel special. And I think, I didn't really like I can understand why they went with this Ireland versus Dagestan approach. Any sort of, I suppose you have to find an angle, for something here. But really, the fight showed that it was actually nothing to do with Ireland versus Dagestan at all. Look, I'll give my complete honest thoughts. The whole Ireland versus Dagestan stuff, I didn't like it. I thought
you were never gone on it, really, weren't you? Not, that's totally fine. I definitely, I didn't buy into it myself. How did you feel about Caoilte, real quick, before we go back to you, Andy?
Was it? I understood it. Is the main thing. I got why they do it. It doesn't put me up or down. I just want to see them fight. I'm always interested here of asking the people who are involved what they think, but no, I'm not gone. It doesn't bother me, but I get why they would do it, and I don't blame them for doing it either. Is the other side of it.
For sure, Andy.
Yeah, again, I understand why they did it. I just don't. I didn't like it personally. One, there is no rivalry between Ireland versus Dagestan. Of course, Conor and Khabib fought. He's from Ireland. Khabib's from Dagestan. I know. I heard Nathan Kelly talking in the kind of snippet before they go out, that there's this tension or whatever, and I don't think that is the case. I don't think there is a tension between Ireland and Dagestan or the fighters, and I think that the one thing I would say as well is I just feel like it forced this kind of animosity, which in a way is good for building the fight. And when you see stuff like the weigh-ins and stuff like that coming out, it does get your interest a little bit more, and it creates that kind of we're talking about fights here at the end of the day, but from a I just don't think the shoe fit here. Like Paul Hughes is not this. He's not this guy who's going to be feeling a lot of animosity towards another fighter. Maybe it did spill over into that at one point, but like I think that the Conor Khabib story and the Paul Hughes versus Usman story are so polarizingly different. Like they're complete polar opposites.
For sure. Like, I think if you're going to point the finger at anybody here, I think you have to point it at Khabib and his comments ahead of the fight. Because I think, the Ireland versus Dagestan, he had a can of petrol and he poured that can of petrol over that narrative and he didn't match when he said that, when he started talking about the Irish fighters and Usman himself, talking about Irish history and stuff, which he was like, Usman's comments were way worse than Khabib's.
They were way more inflammatory.
Oh, big time. I was like, well, look, he obviously doesn't know Irish history if he thinks that we're kind of layovers. Obviously, if anyone who's listening to this is going to be well in tune with the Irish history. So that, and obviously Khabib was going to say that. To me, it was like, okay, I felt that to be a level of mind games, and I feel, I felt an air of confidence that they felt that they had to do something like that. Because I think deep down they knew that Hughes was going to be a threat coming in here. And, the narrative that the PFL said, I would more so point the finger at Caoilte, Khabib and Usman and the comments that they were making, which kind of made it a little bit more personal.
Just before you say it in Caoilte, I will throw it out there because we'll be accused of bias otherwise. Paul Hughes did start all this. Like he was the one who was like Ireland versus Dagestan number 2. Yeah. So like...
True that.
We won't put all the blame on the Dagestan.
True that. True that. We're everything is at peace now. We could start another war here again if we stay going the way we're going. Caoilte.
And look, it's all fight promotion. I think there was still a little bit left. I think there maybe been a little bit of tension, nearly unfinished business from the aftermath of the last time there was this Ireland versus Dagestan fight, the Conor and Khabib fight, and it was, I do feel like it was a method of building the fight a bit more, adding a bit of narrative, helping the promotional play, helping PFL more so because, they've, I think PFL kind of needed a bit of hand with building fights and they really did help. And I do think it was just all a big promotional thing and helped to help build the fight. So, yeah, I think everyone has part to play in this at the end of the day. Khabib going out there and pouring fire and then he was on top of it. Look, yeah, that's a big part, and that probably helped because I'd forgotten about the fact that Paul may have started with the calling out and everything. But yeah, then you bring it back, and Khabib makes the comment, Usman does it, and you're just adding fuel to the fire, bring it back to life again, and then it kind of takes legs from there, or grows legs from there, and PFL run with it. Yeah, it's done now. I'm glad the way it finished, though, and I know we'll get into that. The way it finished, yeah, we'll speak to that more later, I think. But
yeah,
very happy
right, you can say it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of respect after the fight, like, wasn't there, Caoilte?
Yeah, I think it's needed as well, because I think with the narrative being built, a lot of people from the outside could look at that and think that, there's this animosity between these two different areas that it doesn't actually exist. It's just the building of the fight. But the way they both handled it, I thought was very important that Khabib got on the mic in that situation as well, and explained how there's mutual. He loves Ireland, that they support Ireland supports Palestine, the Irish government supports Palestine, and he made a point to get on the mic and saying that the way Usman was, how grateful he was for that fight, squashed any beef that there may have been, and then the way Paul Hughes handled it afterwards as well, saying that look, Dagestan's a small fighting country, Ireland's a small fighting country, and both parties know what it's like to come from a small fighting area and to be fighting at the top level. The mutual respect is there, and I love the way it was handled by both or all parties at the end of the bout.
Yeah, at the end of the bout, it was definitely respectful, Andy. Not so much after the ceremonial weigh-ins where, we had the Irish and the Dagestanis fighting on the streets of Dubai, and the videos that were going around. I know you're on with PC and Donna was over there kind of giving his account of what happened there. Kicked off momentarily, but it didn't turn into anything too big, gladly enough, but still not what you want to see.
Yeah, it's not what you want to see, and like, yeah, it's just it's not what you want. Look, I chat with PT a lot, and he kind of comes, I think, from the perspective of like, what does this look like? How can MMA as a sport in Ireland grow? And the biggest challenge that MMA has had in Ireland is to grow outside of the MMA bubble and to become recognised by the masses in Ireland. And honestly, the establishments who control a lot of the strings behind the scenes, or the legality of MMA, recognizing it as sport, all of these things, and the public perception of MMA is at oftentimes, if not all the time, linked with Conor McGregor. So you had the whole Ireland versus Dagestan narrative initially was Conor and Khabib, and the way that ended was with such even the build up to that was so just dark, like if you remember that. And then additionally you have the fight in the cage. It was lopsided enough bar a few moments in there, and then you had the aftermath, which was just a brawl outside spilling out into fans and stuff, and you don't want to see that again. Like, as much as it's like kind of cool and stuff to be like, oh geez, this cool brawl or whatever, like it just doesn't, it's not a good look. And especially where MMA is at the moment in the country, where you want to have maybe just a better light shone on it. And I think that's what we had here with, like, if you look at the actual fight itself, I know we'll get there.
I was going to go right into it if you want to, finish up. And
but like, you just have this skirmish breaking out. And to be fair, like, from again, the people who I'm talking to are all Irish, so maybe I'm getting a biased account of it here. But even in the video I saw that Will Harris put out, the Anatomy of a Fighter guy, you've basically got Usman Nurmagomedov saying, go and get the Irish there, which is not a great way to handle it at all. But yeah, it wasn't. It was a skirmish. It's not the end of the world, but I just didn't want this to turn into this complete, like, just chaos in the stands, people brawling in the venue, teams going at it. Like, you don't want to see that. And I think that what we did see in reality was, and even from the very get-go here, was two lads who are so fucking good at fighting, are the top of the pile in Bellator and PFL, two of the best lightweights in the world, standing toe to toe and going at it for 5 rounds, and they respected each other throughout. They showed great respect, as Caoilte mentioned after the fact. And I thought, albeit Khabib was pouring fuel on the fire early on in the build-up, I thought it was great the way he handled it with respect, and to kind of bring the two countries together. And similarly, how Usman Nurmagomedov and how Paul Hughes both handled it too. And yeah, that's kind of, I've gone on a dribble of thoughts here, as I often do, so I'll let you rein me back in.
That's all right, Andy. I mean, look, we were talking about brawls and everything. It certainly wasn't a brawl when the cage door closed and Usman and Paul were inside. It was a technical, tactical, cagey affair, especially from the first round into the second round, at least. Anyway, let's talk about that first round. Caoilte first. I mean, Usman coming out using a heavy kick game. We talk, and a lot of people would talk about Usman's jab and the ability that Usman has to control the distance that he wants to fight to be fought at with his jab, but he was doing it very well with his kicking game. And Paul struggled to kind of get on the inside and kind of find his timing because of that. And, a lot of the kicks that landed and a lot of the work that came from Usman in that first round, it was enough for me anyway for him to take that round, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I watched a few of his fights back during the week, and the one thing I noted was the fact that his kicking game is really, really strong. I said before, I think he's, of the Nurmagomedovs, he's got the best strike in the bunch, and I think he somewhat proved that there tonight as well. The kicks were, they're really good. He's good at keeping a range, good at moving, mixing them up a bit as well, and just keeping the opponent guessing. I thought they made a big. I thought they were kind of the big difference maker in the first round, especially who's going low with them as well. You could see the damage being done to the front leg of Paul Hughes as well. But I do think they were the difference in that first round.
Absolutely, I think the variety of shots, Andy, that Usman was throwing in that first round, it made it really difficult. Like I said, I think we, as the fight went on, we kind of got a more of a grip of what Paul Hughes wanted to do, and that was cut off the cage, fight in the pocket, land those body shots, try to take the gas from Usman. But it was a very hard thing for him to try and do in that first round with Usman, so fast and agile, and, like the shot selection was keeping Paul Hughes guessing and kind of having to reset an awful lot amount of times in that first round. Yeah,
like it was your classic chess match between two incredibly high level fighters where they're both feeling each other out. They're getting their reads. Usman obviously wanting to keep it at kicking range because that's his bread and butter, and you can see the way he was able to flick up those front kicks. They're like really a piston. It's like he can essentially use his foot and his leg as a jab, which is very, very impressive. The way he can do that, and obviously, Paul, his bread and butter is fighting at a closer range at punching distance. So, what we saw for the first maybe 2-3 minutes was Paul not really throwing a whole lot as he tried to get his reads. Usman was throwing because he was already at his range. Paul had to obviously break the distance in order to get to his own range and where he wanted the fight to go. And yeah, like it felt like the way, not that I've watched an enormous amount of Muay Thai, but the way Muay Thai fights kind of they build the pace. Like it starts off slow and you build and that's what it felt like. It felt like the first round was this real, okay, we're getting to know each other, we're getting the feel here, and I was still on the edge of my seat because you're like, God, like every time they each threw, I'm like, Jesus, like anything could happen here, and then we go into the second round and the fight starts to take flight, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, now the fighting is actually.
Yeah, it was a feeling out process was kind of slowly but surely kind of dwindling, coming into that second round as well. We saw Paul kind of upping the pace a small bit. We've seen him having some success with shots to the body. Usman still throwing out those kicks as well. But yeah, it was at that second round where we really saw Paul. But we were talking about this, guys, before the fight, and we had seen what happened to Usman's brother Umar against Merab, and when Merab put that pace on Umar, you saw him kind of starting to dwindle and not being comfortable on the back foot as well, and that's what Paul was trying to do and needed to do in this fight to get success. And he started to get inklings of success in that second round, Andy, but it was a really close round too, to be fair. I mean, there's an argument for Paul in that. I personally scored that one and the first round for Usman as well. And, at that stage, I'm thinking, Paul is doing all of the right things, but I felt he wasn't letting go enough. Now, and it's easy for me to say when you're fighting somebody like Usman Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov.
There we go.
Yeah, you go. I struggled many a times with Usman before because I don't know whether it's Usman. But anyway, with Usman, starting to create that pace, and I would have liked to seen Paul have a little bit more of a lack of respect for Usman there and try and throw a little bit more shots when he had that chance after he was making Usman bite on those feints.
Yeah, I mean, the second round, I loved watching the second round. I thought that, I can understand your point. I feel like they both did open up more. Like I said, we saw Hughes kind of open at least towards the start of the round with that switch kick that kind of sent Usman flying back against the cage, and that was Hughes's first big moment in the fight. And I feel like it was more the defensive efforts of Hughes in the second that really shone through, because this was when we started to see Usman Nurmagomedov really pushing the pace and trying to get his takedowns. And Hughes was perfect with his takedown defense. It was absolutely incredible. He was just stuffing takedown after takedown. He was doing everything right. And for a long time in this fight, it seemed like Usman Nurmagomedov did not have the answer as to getting Paul Hughes to the mat. We saw Usman Nurmagomedov land a big 1-2, I would say, kind of, I can't remember if it was about around halfway through the round or towards the latter half, a flush 1-2, and I think those were the most significant shots of that round. That's what I agree with you, Ian. I thought that he edged it. Again, I need to go back and watch this fight again because we're going to talk about scoring here right now. We're literally recording right after it's finished, so it's very difficult to break down the scoring, but I think that's what shaved it for an Usman round for me was that 1-2. But again, as Hughes is defending those takedowns, he's also ripping to the body. He's coming up top. He's doing everything really well and also starting to land some damage. And I think Dan Hardy was like, Paul Hughes just looks completely unfazed. And that's exactly what I was thinking as I was watching the second round, was that, yes, Usman is starting to pour on the pressure, looking to get the takedowns, and he's landing some good shots. But so is Paul, and Paul has an answer for all of these takedown attempts, and he doesn't look fazed at all. It's not like, oh, now, we'll talk about Nathan Kelly's fight later on, but Nathan Kelly had a brilliant first round, and then the second round was completely opposite, and it was one-way traffic. That is not what we saw in this second round here between Hughes and Nurmagomedov.
Definitely very well said and very well kind of broken down. And, coming into round 3, Caoilte, the fight was really on a knife edge. And I feel, Paul had to come out and have a big round here. And he was having a very successful round. And obviously, the couple of low blows, which seen Usman get a point deducted for, that can kind of take you out of your stride a little bit. I wouldn't say it detrimentally affected Paul, but it definitely, it probably took a wind out of his sails for a couple of minutes there, where it is hard because that last one that landed, he was in serious pain there and he needed that time to recover. And, there was that. And I believe we'll talk about obviously round 4 in a minute with the head clash. I think those two moments which kind of played into Usman's favor, where he had a little bit of a chance to kind of rest, recover and recuperate when, you're Paul Hughes and you want to put that pace on. You don't want to give that man a break. And like what Andy was saying was happening in round 2, when Usman is landing all of his good shots and Paul is eating them, that can play an effect with your confidence too. But, round 3, really close round as well. How did you see it?
Yeah, I think this is the one where there will be a lot of debate by who scored it which way. Is it a 9-9 or is it a 10-8 to Paul Hughes? I think that shot, the nut shot, really broke up the momentum of the round as well, because I think the body language of Usman was fading slightly. He was beginning to look tired a little bit in that round, and early on the round, the momentum was swaying in favor of Paul Hughes. He was defending takedowns. He was landing the shots. He was looking good. Then I think, you're just getting your stride, get caught, and then Usman has a bit of a breather while Paul Hughes looked in serious pain. Now he was flat, his face on the mat, like in pain. And then, the fight restarts and Usman comes out like a bat out of hell. He really went for it. Then afterwards, you could hear, was it Pat McAllister saying,
so funny.
Don't let him off the fucking hook.
Don't let that fucker off the hook.
Dan Hardy couldn't even keep it in. He just started laughing. It was brilliant.
But like that's when he started having the success with it. It was immediately after the restart is when he started having success with the takedown. So like I was thinking, I haven't been in a fist fight and gotten hoofed in the balls. It's 2 times in a row. But like I would imagine that it probably has an impact on you. I don't want to just completely be like, Hughes wouldn't have got taken down, but
well, no, you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about it, and Usman also was very smart in kind of he went in and went for it straight away. So, when the brain, you're on a little bit of a break, you're trying to recuperate. You're not fully switched on yet, and Usman capitalized on that. So,
very intelligent by him.
Yeah, very intelligent, and one of the few times he was able to capitalize, Andy, on the takedowns. I mean, you suggested, and rightly so, that Hughes' takedown defense, which was no surprise to me, to be honest. I didn't think that, Usman would have too much success in the takedown. I think the way the fight played out in terms of takedowns for Usman is about as much as I expected. There was no really long periods of time in the fight, Andy, where Usman was on top and really dominating. Hughes was either defending it or he was getting taken down and just remaining safe in the kind of a defensive guard or springing straight back up to his feet.
Yeah, like there were times in the fight where Nurmagomedov did what Nurmagomedov does, and that's his grappling is phenomenal, and he had Paul in precarious positions. But I never really thought it was like an overwhelming influence on a round, if that's the right way to put it. Where he was he was landing shots here and there off the advantageous positions from top, but like not a huge amount, and especially that third round, I thought Hughes was looking really, really good, leading up to the low blows. I thought that he came on strong at the end of the round he landed some beautiful body shots, and I thought it was a very close round. Could have gone either way. I personally had it for Paul, but again, need to go back and watch it. If it does go for Paul, you're talking a 10-8 round and they're all square going into the fourth. If you scored for Nurmagomedov, obviously with the point deduction, he would still be 2 rounds up going into the fourth. So yeah, it's potentially it came down to how that round was scored. I don't know if there's a lot of close rounds in this.
It would, but I mean, you scored at a 10-8 round to Paul, then the fight is all even. going into round 4 and round 5. So let's talk about round 4 and round 5 real quick now. So round 4, I thought the clearest round for Paul Hughes for sure in that fight. And then I think Usman did just enough to do round 5. So you're talking about a draw there. The round 3 is round 3 is the defining factor in what the result on this fight and how you scored. In my opinion, I kind of was half expecting a draw. I think it would have made sense and would have set up a very good rematch too. But obviously the judges don't care about that kind of narrative. They're calling it as they see it. But for me, it was definitely round 3 and how the judges seen it. I'm kind of scouting in the background to see if we can kind of get some cards thrown up there online to see if we can kind of relate to it, but nothing yet. But in round 4, obviously, as I was saying, Caoilte, it was a very good round for Paul Hughes, and it was at this stage of the fight too where you kind of seen a little bit of a momentum shift going towards Hughes. The body work was kind of adding up for Usman. Obviously, the confidence remained for Hughes throughout. For Usman was looking a little bit tired and a little bit weary in round 4, and Hughes was really pouring it on before the clash of heads.
Yeah, the body, and you could tell from the body language coming out, Paul Hughes looked like the more confident fighter. He looked like he was winning that fight going into round 4. The way he held himself, his composure, his confidence, and he didn't look tired. Usman did. It looked like the fight was beginning to wear on him a little bit in that 4th round, and Paul was having the success. Usman was fine. Was fine his moments in there as well, and then obviously we had the head clash where it was a nasty old one. Paul comes out with a cut. Usman, I think they were describing it on the commentary of because the hardest part of the head would be on your forehead, and that where Paul Hughes' forehead went kind of spun Usman's neck, and it looked. They were saying that he needed a bit more time. Vision was a bit blurred. I think he could have done. He looked like he could have done with the rest as well, and I don't think Usman really recovered from that head clash in that round anyway. And Paul Hughes began to kind of take over that round. So I would agree with you, the fact that he scored, that I would have scored it for Paul Hughes in round 4. He was really I think he was after growing into that fight fully at this point, and I thought, I don't know, I was struggling to score. I kind of stopped scoring at one point through that fight, but at that stage I didn't know how it was going to go going into round 5. It was edge of the seat stuff at this stage.
Very, very hard to an ultimately hard fight to score, especially as an Irishman as well, to be honest, for me anyway. Because we're in an awkward predicament here, Andy. When we're Irish media, and you don't want to be overly biased, but maybe we can be maybe we can be too biased. It goes the opposite. Yeah. I honestly feel for me that it goes in the opposite way. So I am looking forward to watching the fight back and maybe getting another perspective when the emotions are out of it a little bit more, and obviously when everything is happening live as well. But round 4, Hughes going into round 5 as well, it was super close round 2, which you could, I feel, probably give to Usman as well.
I think that the point deduction has really confused things for fans online as well. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people reacting, being like, 48-46 is a disgraceful scorecard with the point deduction. But like, the reality is, it's when you're saying, oh, it should be a draw, it shouldn't be 48-46, it's only one round. That's all it is. Like, if let's say on first glance, and you can argue, of course, any of these rounds, but let's say you do score rounds 1 and 2 for Usman, you score rounds 4 for Paul, and you score round 5 for Usman, and then it all comes down to that round 3 where there is the point deduction. Well, if you give it to Paul, then it's a draw, 47-47. If you give it to Usman, well, then it's 48-46 to Usman, and that's it. That's all it is. And we're talking a couple of punches here, and again, you could argue that second round as well. I'm not saying that that's a definitive Usman Nurmagomedov round. It was the finest of inches because it was the two top tier. This was elite MMA. This was Paul Hughes showing to the entire world once and for all, I am one of the best in the world. We've known this for a long time. Just how good he is.
Again, I would feel
party. Again,
yeah, for sure. Again,
but more so. This was more so.
Yeah,
you can see the reaction of people were like, "Oh my god!" Like, okay, yeah, we saw him do this to AJ McKee, but we didn't expect this against Usman Nurmagomedov. And look at the betting lines. Like, he was a heavy underdog coming into this.
Crazy money.
regardless of him losing, he proved that the lines were completely way off. This was a pick 'em fight, and you could tell the way Usman Nurmagomedov was going on after the fact. Like I don't think
he was relieved. He was relieved. Like Usman was relieved after the fight, and it definitely showed Habib as well. You know, that's why they showed respect, because they knew whether they did before or after before the fight doesn't matter, but they definitely did after. Usman knows, and I'm going to try that second. I
don't think he did know, Ian, because I think that I honestly think with these lads, the Dagestani fighters, there's no bullshit about them. I think what you see is what you get, and that they do take these, like the narratives, the fight promotion, I think they take it very literally, as far as being like, oh, you're disrespecting me, well, we're going to show you, which is why you see, you know, not taking kindly to any sort of jeering or anything in the crowd, and fights break out. And I think that he was looking down on Paul. I thought he was outright dismissive. I thought he thought that this fight and that Paul Hughes was entirely beneath him, and he came away from it being like, he said it himself, he goes, I was wrong, I overlooked you. And like you could see him hobbling out, he was all beaten up. He won the fight, of course, he retained his belt, but Paul, he will never forget that fight against Paul Hughes, let me tell you. And I absolutely want to see the rematch. I've been told that Donna Corby is on the ground there, and I'm told that Nurmagomedov kind of just dismissed the thought of a rematch.
Of course he did.
Yes, which probably goes in Hughes' favor, considering everyone who's seen the fight will be wanting it. But like that's a huge. And Belfast, could you imagine?
Oh, it's got to be in Belfast, doesn't it, Caoilte? It has to be there.
Yeah, if you're gonna have a rematch, I think Belfast is the place to do it. I don't think he'll get that fight in Belfast, to be frank about it, unless I can't see Usman Nurmagomedov being like, I just beat this guy, and regardless what you think, he's beat this guy, and then going to go to his home turf to defend the title. I just can't see that happening. I could be wrong. I'd be delighted if I'm wrong, but if Paul had got another win, and then I think it'd be more than feasible, but I can't see straight away it happening in Belfast. But I said, hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Obviously, look at the option to go into the tournament is there as well, and it'll be interesting. But I think after the way the fight played out, I think the appetite is going to be there for the rematch. It'd be foolish not to make it as well. You know, you might. When is it? January? Want to start in April? I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot of options there now, Andy, for Paul, and I guess, you know, to have options is very good. But I know what he wants. I think you know what he wants. And he said what he wanted after the fight, and that was the rematch in Belfast.
I absolutely think that we're going to see them fight again. No question. The question is, well, no question. The question is when. Would it be an immediate one? I don't know. Look at that. They sold 10,000 tickets tonight to that event. Like PFL blew this out of the water. Like while I'm saying that I disagree with the Ireland Dagestan stuff, I thought they did a tremendous job. They built the fight immaculately. I thought that the video series that they did was incredible, and I think you've just had a fight of the year contender here, and a fight that was incredibly competitive that people are going to argue about now for the next while. So it's there on a platter for you to do the second one. Obviously, things get a little bit confusing, I guess, where you have the tournaments.
Yeah, like I mean,
what do you do with both of them?
Did they give him the title? Did they take it away from him now? You don't know what he's.
Didn't it come out that the title's gone now? So like
gone.
That was the Bellator title, and that ceased to exist. So like, does he? I don't know if there's clarity in it.
So now what they're doing is they're doing the PFL kind of champion series now, where someone will defend the title as well. So whether they'll take that belt off Usman and then give him maybe a PFL title or whatever they want to do with that. But if it's no title, I mean, have Paul and him and Usman fight again in Belfast for the new title. Like,
just make him the PFL champion and just do the rematch.
Yeah, for sure. But then there's another title then for winning the tournament. So there's still that separation there, which is very confusing, to be honest. But that's what I understand.
Paddy's Day in Belfast. I mean, it's on a platter. Like, you do Paddy's Day in Belfast. The season goes until the end of the year. So just have then the winner of the season fight the
at the end of
champion.
the year. Yeah, but I don't know whether Nurmagomedov is going to be healed up in time. Like he said, he was badly broke up. March is not that far away.
That actually is about 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
I think thinking we're in December still.
We're in. That's an MMA fantasy matchup right there on St. Patrick's Day.
That's never going to happen.
I'm surprised nobody has. The UFC, I think, had the chance on St. Patrick's weekend last year, but I don't know if you'd be able to make it happen this year or whenever. But I mean, it needs to happen sometimes. I think, maybe Paul might need to recover a little bit. I don't think he was too busted up. Nurmagomedov was definitely busted up after the fight, but nonetheless, a great fight. And, maybe I'll finish off this conversation by just complimenting Paul Hughes, even though he didn't get the nod. He's still a winner. Like he's an Irish mixed martial arts representative, and I'm very proud to call him an Irish mixed martial artist representative too. We're at a stage in Irish mixed martial arts now where Irish MMA is trying to come out from under the shadows of Conor McGregor, and we need fighters like Paul Hughes to be coming up and challenging these kind of fighters and fighting at an elite level and putting a spotlight on Irish mixed martial arts as a whole. Well, it's not just about Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, he had Irish MMA up on his shoulders once upon a time, but slowly, sadly, kind of smashed it into pieces. We need people like Paul Hughes. We need people like Nathan Kelly, who we'll talk about, and Kenny Mokhonoana and John Mitchell. We need these guys fighting on these big cards, because Irish MMA, it's not just about Conor McGregor. We do have other stars here, and I'm really glad, even though he was defeated, Paul Hughes just shone a real bright light on Irish mixed martial arts. So all the credit in the world to him. And, I just can't wait for the future. He's going to learn, he's going to grow. And that second fight, I mean, it has to happen, and it's going to be absolutely savage when it does happen as well. Hopefully, you get it back in Belfast. You guys will be able to go up to it. Fuck it, I'd be struggling to not miss that one myself, even though I'm over here in Canada. But nonetheless, we must move on and rattle through.
Paul Hughes fighting in Saskatoon.
Imagine that. I doubt it. There's, I don't, in Saskatoon.
Very well said what you said, though, Ian.
Yeah,
spot on.
Yeah, it's the truth, and I think we're all kind of at that stage now. So that's how I kind of feel, and I think the dream scenario for maybe Irish mixed martial arts fans and maybe for us as media members was a Paul Hughes win, where you get that extra light shone on it. But look at Paul Hughes' day will come. I'm very sure of that. But let's talk about the rest of the Irish on the card, lads. Nathan Kelly, very, very unlucky, I guess, in certain ways, who went in there against Usman Nurmagomedov, who was on a bit of a hiatus, but came back and, looked competitive, didn't look rusty at all. Absolutely. We were talking about Caoilte before the podcast, that the setup for the elbow in round one for Nathan Kelly, it was the story of the first round. It was, basically what won Nathan Kelly, in my opinion. Well, I don't know whether he won him the first round. I think Magomed kind of came in, but definitely put him in for an argument for winning that first round. I think
I agree with you. I thought he won the first round.
I thought he won the first round. Yeah.
I mean, it was close though, because Magomedov did come in, take it down, landed some damage. But I think ultimately, he almost had that fight finished. So yeah, I would definitely myself score it for Nathan Kelly, but he was unlucky. I mean, hindsight is a great thing. I guess I'll ask you the question maybe Nathan might be asking himself, or other people might be asking, is that, when he hurt him, do you think he should have let him back up? Do you think he should have followed him down maybe? But it's hard when you're in that kind of scenario, when you've hurt and cut somebody, not to follow down to try and finish. But I can't be too critical of what Nathan Kelly did after landing that huge elbow. No,
not at all. I think he, in any fight, I think many fighters would do it. You're fresh. You've hurt someone really early. He came out, even with the calf kick, it looked like Nathan looked sharp from the very beginning. He landed the calf kick, and then that little furry inside got up, straight back up from the takedown, and then the way he framed and landed that elbow was like shit. It was parallel to the previous fight he had, where
that's right,
where he got the finish, and it was so good. You could see him looking for it as well. I was looking at the screen and I was like, oh, this is what he's going to do, and it was flush. And in that moment, I thought he was close to getting a finish. I think, oh, he could actually get it here. Not close. He could have gotten the finish. You know, he went down. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He was on top. He was in side control. He took the back at one point as well. So yeah, look, I can hardly blame him. And maybe there's maybe a little bit of an adrenaline dump going into round 2. There's a bit of a comeback then in that round from Magomedov. But I would have given the first round to Nathan Kelly, and then the second round, then I think just completely different. You know, Ahmed came out. It was a whole different fight then the second round, and we saw how it finished from there. I don't think Nathan Kelly got to get going at all, really.
Yeah. I mean, Andy, we saw a flash towards the end of the first round where Magomedov did kind of get the takedown on Nathan Kelly, and landed a little bit of damage, maybe showed his dominance there. And I think that, on top of the fact that I would agree with the Caoilte. I mean, not trying to. I mean, Nathan will probably tell us himself, but to speculate, it was either an adrenaline dump maybe after not getting the finish, mixed with the fact that that he was a little bit under pressure with the takedown at the end of round 1, and was probably in the back of your mind coming into round 2, but. The wind looked a little bit out of Nathan Kelly's sails coming into round 2, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was night and day between round 1 and round 2. Jesus, Nathan looked absolutely phenomenal in the first round. I thought that he obviously had the low calf kicks early. He stuffed the takedown. When we saw, I'm not going to pretend that I knew a heaping amount about Akhmedov coming into this, but if you were to think of the ultimate kind of Dagestani fighter prototype, he fit the bill in that regard. And I thought that Nathan looked composed. I thought he looked brilliant. I thought he was doing absolutely everything right in that first round. And then even when he got taken down by Magomedov, he got right back up, sprung up, did all the right things to get up there. And then, of course, we see is what is starting to become a signature of his, is that slicing elbow over the top with the right elbow that really hurt Magomedov. I think that that alone, and the follow-up shots, and yeah, I know he went to the ground. I think there's no, I wouldn't criticize that at all. Nathan's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He had him hurt, and he sensed the kill here. And yes, there was a swing of momentum. There was a low blow. The fight stopped. And it was after that's when we saw the swing. So maybe a combination of, the adrenaline dump from, almost having the finish, not getting it, then the low blow. It's very impossible for us to say here today. So we'll have to hear from Nathan on that. But yeah, once there was the start of the swing when Magomedov took him down at the end of the first and started to land. And I can see an argument, I can see no issue with someone making an argument that he thus won the round. But for me, the shots that Nathan landed won him the first. And yeah, when we entered the second, it just did. It's hard for me not to say that Nathan's demeanor entirely changed, or that's what it looked like on TV anyway, where he just didn't seem to have an answer for Akhmedov, and that was ultimately the beginning of the end for Nathan, unfortunately, after what was an absolutely incredible first round from him.
Yeah, it's just the harsh reality of mixed martial arts sometimes, and the way the pendulum swings, and the momentum swings in fights. It's crazy, but it's also tough to fight those guys who are just relentless with their takedowns as well. And you can prepare, and they just have this relentlessness that's just so, the intricacies of knowing. I think it was Dan Hardy who was kind of, and we'll talk about Kenny's fight in a minute, but Ibrahimov, the intricacies of knowing all of the joint manipulations, or the grips, or just to pass it at the right time, or to trap an arm at the right time. These guys at the Dagestani handcuff, obviously for Nathan Kelly was trouble in round 1 and in round 2 as well, and that can be very, very tiring as well. But nonetheless, look, it's the loss comes at an unfortunate time for Nathan Kelly, but at the same time too, he will bounce back. I think you tweeted it out, Andy, that the last time he lost the fight, he went on an 11-fight win streak. So he gets go back to the drawing board as well. I feel a win in this fight, we could have seen him maybe competing in the world tournament perhaps, and maybe those opportunities are now gone out the window. But he's young, I think 27. He has plenty of time to kind of dust himself off, get back into the mix there again, and there's lots of opportunities for him in PFL. Any final thoughts on Nathan before we move on?
I take all responsibility for jinxing him.
Your number one pick, Andy.
he's still my captain. He will always be my captain. We stand with Nathan Kelly.
Indeed. But look, it's unfortunate for Nathan, and he was always being gracious to us with his time and gives great interviews. And you know what? He'll be back. He'll get some other big wins, and there's plenty of opportunities there for him in the PFL as well. Let's talk about Kenny Mokhonoana versus Ibrahimov. Caoilte, the kind of story of this fight was kind of laid out in the very early stages of round one, really, with the takedown from Ibrahimov. The hip toss, kind of seeing him in top control. Kenny couldn't really get off his back, and it was kind of the story of the fight. It was a very frustrating fight for Kenny Mokhonoana, and Ibrahimov just built in confidence as the fight went on. But Kenny really didn't have an answer for that takedown, and that was kind of the cusp of what happened in this fight.
Yeah, it was. I guess the approach for each round for Ibrahimov it's kind of like a copy paste for every round. The way he was getting the takedown, wrapping up the legs on the ground, and then kind of working his way up and just dominating Kenny with the grappling. And you could see his wrestling was just different level in that fight. And it was, I don't want to say, it was quite similar to Kenny's last fight with the wrestling was kind of, was dictating the pace of it and dictating the rounds. And it was, I think, the only time we really got to see much striking in the feet where it was either at the very beginning or at the very end when Ibrahimov threw that insane spinning, or was it the wheel kick, and caught him a little bit as well. But yeah, it was just wrestling all day for Ibrahimov, that traditional Dagestani wrestling style that got him the win.
Indeed. Andy, when you were looking at Kenny's last fight, obviously we knew the danger of the takedown was there, and we've seen that in Kenny's last loss as well. And, it was there in this fight too. It's if there's something where Kenny is going to have to go back to the gym and work on, obviously that takedown defense, or looking to try and get back up from the takedown, is something that he will have to be working on, because there'll be other fighters who would be looking at the last two fights and seeing that gap in his skill set, and Ibrahimov kind of took full advantage of it throughout the fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was a completely dominant win for Ibrahimov. I thought Ibrahimov looked really, really good here. Obviously, Kenny kind of each round he started quite aggressively on the feet, looking to move forward and land damage. And unfortunately, that left some openings for Ibrahimov to just take him down and really go to work. And yeah, look, it was a tough night of the office for Kenny. I mean, it was a long 15 minutes where Ibrahimov just really dominated and kind of moved to various positions, was landing some heavy knees to the body from side control, was landing shots from kind of every position on top. And yeah, even I suppose he put the icing on the cake there at the end when Kenny did get to his feet, and he kind of landed that roundhouse kick towards the very end of the third round. And yeah, a really dominant win. So look, Kenny's going to have to go back to the drawing board. Obviously, he missed weight going into this as well by a pound. So I don't know how much that affected him at all.
By a cunt hair, as he said. Ibrahimov at the way. Did you see that? I missed weight by a cunt hair. I thought that was funny.
That's a heavy hair.
We're definitely not getting after I said that. Now we're definitely not getting monetized for this episode on YouTube.
Do you reckon someone's gone and specifically weighed a quote unquote cunt's hair before?
I don't know about that.
I wonder how does he have the science behind that? I don't know if he can back that up.
I don't know about that, but nonetheless, I thought that was funny as well. Let's move on to John Mitchell, the only Irishman that did get a win on the card. Thankfully, it wasn't a clean sweep of losses for the Irish on the night. The Cork man went in there against a tough opponent in Sohail Tari and won a pretty one-sided fight. I know I was kind of, I kind of called it a close fight on Twitter, but in hindsight, I was kind of, a little bit too kind to Tiari. I feel Mitchell was pretty much in control, apart from obviously Caoilte, the guillotine choke attempt in round 2, which was very, very, very close. And I think John did very well to get out of that, and it was the winning of the fight for him, obviously.
It was, and look, I'm just going to start this one off. Auld Triangle Draft, Team Caoilte is 1-0 after the very, first win of the season. John Mitchell coming up strong, had to wear a bit of red to represent Cork after that win from John.
Dubai is John Mitchell, is it? Is this? I feel like eligibility should be called into question here.
You were trying to sign Lonnie Kavanagh. Will you stop?
Any angle I can take.
But yeah, look, it's a good win, but I'd say he'll come out of that learn a lot, especially with after nearly it looked like he was going to tap in that, was it the second round? Yeah, second round. Where he was, he got caught in a very, very tight guillotine, left his head on the outside when he was going for that takedown. But besides that, I thought John looked really good, looked quite good. The striking, he came out early and he was, I love that kind of, that back front kick up to the midsection that he does. And he likes starting the rounds off with that, and they're effective. He gets that range early with the kicks, and he can, and they're horrible when they land as well. But besides that, his takedowns, his wrestling was good. He was active, and then it was pretty. The 2 rounds he won, I thought, were dominant. I think that second round, it was very. It was looking edgy for a little while for him, especially after that. I thought he was going to tap at one point, but yeah.
Yeah, overall, I think I would have scored it at 29-28. Judges, on the other hand, 30-27. You can understand that they didn't feel that the guillotine choke Andy was, pivotal enough for them to score the round for Tiari. But, it was the adjustment to that as well, which I was impressed. John obviously getting caught with the guillotine, going for the double leg, switched it up in the third round to the single leg. The difference between keeping your head on the outside and on the inside of the hip is vital when you're going for those kind of takedowns. And obviously, in the second round, he left his head a little bit too much on the outside. We've seen him finished doing something similar in the previous fight in UAE Warrior. So, he recognised that adjustment, went for the single leg in round 3, got the fight down as well. And once he had managed to do that in round 3, I think the writing was on the wall for Tiari. But were you impressed overall by John Mitchell and his performance?
Yeah, I definitely was. Like, this was a kind of a textbook John Mitchell performance from that we kind of have come to expect, where he uses his grappling quite well. He's a lot of top pressure the first round, obviously. It wasn't like an overwhelming amount of damage, but he got the takedown. He was landing some nice knees to the body. He landed a few elbows towards the end. I thought that he lost that second round. I thought that the guillotine was it was very tight to begin with, and then when he got kind of to the mounted guillotine position, he literally extends his hand at one point, and I thought he was, the commentary team did. I thought he was about to tap, and you could almost see him make the conscious decision to be like, no, actually, I can tough this out, and I have this, and that was what. That swung it around for him.
That was also I was thinking that too, and I think eventually what he did was to try and shuck the hips away and push the hips down. It was the same thing that Alexander Volkanovski did against Brian Ortega when he was in the mounted guillotine as well. You need to push that hip, use the hips, push away, and you'll kind of squeeze your legs out. It kind of depressurizes the choke somewhat. But I think you're spot on what you were saying. There was like a split second there where he probably was thinking about it, and then he moved on into that position, which pretty much saved him.
Very impressive.
Very good, very good. Showing good heart there as well. So he would have been good if that one had slipped through the cracks. But nonetheless, a good start to the night for the Irish. A very, very unfortunate end with 3 losses after that.
But in fairness, we did, the rivalry's been put to bed between Ireland and Algeria, so we've got 1-0, and that's that. So that's what we'll focus on tonight.
That's it. We'll definitely focus on that. What we'll focus on before we wrap it up here on the Auld Triangle is a couple of fight announcements that were announced during the week, a couple of really good ones as well. And I am just going to bring those up right away. The first one that really sticks out to me that we were speaking about, guys, was it was the fight between Brian Manning
McCormick
and Sean McCormick. Phenomenal match here for Cage Conflict. We're seeing a couple of these kind of come through now as well, and the Irish versus Irish fights. We're a big fan of those kind of fights here as well, and this one for sure, Andy, is a big one for Cage Conflict.
Yeah, I mean, we only just got the announcement, a couple of weeks ago now, between Kieran Brady and George Grosjev on Ur, and that was kind of like, they're leading the charge on these domestic pro bouts, and then Cage Conflict kind of come with a left counter and land this Brian Manning versus Sean McCormack bout. I think it's a fantastic one. Sean McCormack coming back, I believe, from a long injury. I believe he's had a series of injuries that he's been out for a while. I know he was training in Thailand for a bit. Brian Manning, of course, broke onto the amateur scene and has gone pro, and we've had him on here. He's good crack. He's been his most recent performance. I think he got a first round knockout in his most recent performance, or if I recall correctly. So he's kind of rising on the Irish domestic scene, and I think this is brilliant. I just think that the more professional fights that we can get between lads who are only kind of young in their careers, where okay, a loss is always going to put someone back, but if you're 1-0, 2-0, I don't think it's the end of the world. Look at James Sheehan, where he fought Ian Gary early on, and now he's a Cage Warriors champion. And yeah, like, it's brilliant. I don't think I'm talking there about putting out a fight and then kind of Cage Conflict countering. I don't think it's like that in any way. I think it's just we're starting to see more and more pro fights being made. I see Clan Wars are making some at the moment. Personally, I think that these two are the best two that have been made so far. The Grosjev and Brady, and now McCormack versus Manning. And long may it continue. I think it's really great for the health of the Irish scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Chris, I'll go to you for another fight that was announced for that card as well, and that was Nadine Abbott-Bissett, Team Caoilte member as well. Or Nadine, I think she's known as just Nadine Abbott now, I believe. Is that correct? Or anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's what the
poster said, yeah.
Yeah, she is taking on Valentino, Giuliana Valentino from Team Nikita. But you were saying that Valentino has a pretty good striking background, Caoilte, coming in here against obviously Nadine Abbott, who is well known for her grappling.
Yeah, it's I was surprised because obviously we make our jokes before Cage Conflict. They love getting in an Italian fighter. We've seen in the past. This is very, very, very different to what we've previously seen, and I'm 99% sure it's the same. It's the same girl. This Giuliana Valentino, she is, from what I understand, it's like a very, very good kickboxer and has a lot of experience in shooter boxing as well. She's fought twice in MMA, two of them against, I think one against Rena Kabuta, and then the other was against Fabiola Nascimento, who is one of the top prospects to come out of the IMAFs. And then Rena, if you're aware of kickboxing or if you're aware of kind of the rising scene, Rena Kabuta would be a very, very, very good opposition. That was her debut, and then Fabiola was her last fight. So this girl is no slouch. She's going up against very, very good striker, has titles, European titles, may have a couple of world titles in there as well. So it's going to be no easy matchup, and I'm a massive fan of this fight. I think it's extremely high level. For the records don't do it justice, if you ask me, but brilliant. And going to be a very tough fight for Nadine.
Absolutely, yeah. Andy, Omar Tugarov back in action again. Quick turnaround for him, obviously, after his win by decision. He comes back out 15th of February again, so just a couple of weeks away. He's going on to fight on Cage on the Beach. Again.
Is this like Love Island, is it?
I don't know. He takes on Alan Cordero's 4-1 on Cage on the Beach, which is I know whenever I hear about beach MMA, I always think back to Bodog fights. But this is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the setting is here.
Is it on the beach? Sure, what's the crack? Where is it on?
I don't know. It says
Finland.
Cage on the beach in Finland. Do Finland have any beaches? I don't know.
There's a fine coastline there, isn't there?
There is.
I don't know about the weather, but sure, look, it'll be snow on the beach. Omar back. I hope he gets a tetanus shot ahead of this one now, and that his stomach is healed after his opponent got hungry the last time, you'll recall, during the fight. He's I guess fighting as he's. I don't know what the words I'm looking for here. He's continuing on his streak of just mad activity in 2024 into 2025. He only fought there, 2 weeks ago, was it? 2
weeks ago, yeah. It's quick turnaround for this one now.
It was a tough enough fight.
Battle performance too for him.
It was a bit of a barn burner the last one. So look, I mean, he's certainly staying active. 6-0 now in the space of less than 12 months. So I can't remember which date he made his pro debut now. I'd have to go and look it up here, but he could be getting 7 in the space of a year. So yeah, I mean, I'm always down for an Omar Tugara fight, and yeah, excited to see that one.
100%. I'll stick with you, Andy. Dennis Frimpong, we've seen him in action during the week there against Paddy Pimblett in the old gym. What did they call it? Well, it was a glorified spar anyway. Yeah. Straightener, yeah. More of a glorified spar now, I would call it. But he comes in to take on Robin Frank at Octagon. Robin Frank, I believe, is the guy who was supposed to take on Dom Norkus at German event. So undefeated, highly touted prospect here in Germany, coming in to take on Dennis Frimpong in the lightweight division. A good fight for Dennis here as well, and he's obviously, after a little bit of a hiatus, I think, from Octagon. I mean, I think his contract will run out. Looks like he's back in action there for the promotion, which is good to see.
Yeah, we obviously saw him in the Octagon UK versus Ireland, or Octagon Challenge, the reality show, and then he had he had a fight against Callum Mullen, which he won. That was the last time we saw him in the Octagon cage. That was April of last year. And since then he's competed in grappling, and he did have a fight on a regional show, but without going into it too much, the opponent was substandard, to say the least.
It was a mismatch, mismatch. We can call it for what it is. Like, I mean,
I'm reining myself in here, but yeah, I agree.
But like, I mean, this is, look, it is what it is. You have to fight in front of you, but you have to call it as it is. And there was a little bit of a mismatch, a very big mismatch.
Your man should never been put in there by the promotion.
Yeah. Well, this one here, Andy, is definitely not going to be a mismatch anyway. It's going to be a solid competition for Dennis.
100%, and I believe, I remember looking into this guy when I think he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a solid guy, 5-0 as you mentioned, and yeah, good to see Frimpong back. Obviously, as you mentioned, we saw him sparring Paddy Pimblett, which was a bit bizarre. I mean, in one sense, it got him a lot of publicity, and no harm to be sparring someone at that level to get a bit of experience. But yeah,
didn't do too bad. Didn't do too bad.
He did better. Yeah, it did. I mean, it went how I would expect it to go against a ranked UFC fighter, but
for sure
he did. He gave a decent account of himself, I would say, all things considered. And yeah, good to see him back in an actual cage in an actual fight. And yeah, let's see how he gets on. I'm sure we'll hear about it anyway. I'm sure the build-up will be fun, to say the least.
As always, for sure. Caoilte Clan Wars announced a couple of fights there during the week as well. We've seen Shea Leatham being announced for that card. We have a great fight. I think that you were trying to highlight as well.
Fights too, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of pro fights as well. Any fights that are sticking out that have been announced so far?
Yeah, the welterweight title fight between Shea Leatham and Jay McGarty is a very high level fight. Brilliant. That's it's so well matched. So fair play to Clan Wars for that one. I'm interested to see how the rounds are for this. I remember they announced something before regarding how they were changing title fight rounds. I imagine it's just going to be 3-3s, but who knows? Maybe they've gone back on what they previously said. It was this is going back to late last year. But that is brilliant fight from them. They've announced 2 pro fights then, I believe. One featherweight fight between Damian McKenna and Nikola Ivanovic. So Nikola Ivanovic is still searching for that first win. How
do we feel about that one, lads? I don't know. I think I just don't understand why we keep going back to Nikola Ivanovic here. What's his record now? 0-7-0-8.
Something 0-7, I think it is. Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
my first question, I suppose, would be: Does he have a team? Because he just seems to be. I don't know. I just feel like there's nobody really looking after him. And I know he's a fully grown man and he's a fighter and he's entitled to make his own decisions and all that stuff. But you need a team around you. His last fight, he got put in against your man Ben Wallace on PFL, who that should never have happened. And he's going in, Max Lally, Solomon Simon, Lee Hammond. He's going in against really good guys. And to be fair, in that fight against Lee Hammond, he broke Lee Hammond's nose. But at the end of the day, 0-8.
There's only so many times we can go back and use the same kind of he did this because it is what it is. He's a 0-8 guy and he's taken on Damian McKenna, really doesn't seem to have a team there.
Yeah, and it's like, what does it do for Ivanovic, I ask, and what does it do for McKenna? It gets McKenna a fight, but, if McKenna should go out there and the expectation would be for McKenna to get the win, but then you have a win against a, 0-8 guy on your record, which, I don't know. But does that do anything for you?
In time, like I don't think he is one of these guys, but like if you keep on going with this record, like eventually, like the likes of Tapologists are going to flag it. Even though I actually don't think it's the same categorization. I just think that he's being really mishandled like he should not be fighting these guys that he's going in against. Like whatever about taking fights, sure, but like get in with a team, a coach who's actually going to look after you and kind of help you out. But like otherwise, you're just going to be going in here and taking that. Like ultimately, that's the worst part about it is like the damage. And I know, okay, maybe he's not taking massive amounts of damage right now, but like the longer that this goes on, and if you keep going in against these prospects, it's kind of inevitable. Like
for sure, definitely is a fight that I do like on the card, lads. Is Caitlin Mulholland, or I was not Mulholland. I was thinking someone else. Caitlin Hadfield versus Lisa Murta. That's a really good fight in the atomweight division. Two well matched women there. Caoilte, I know you would have watched both of them closely. I think Lisa's coming off of the IMAFs, and obviously Caitlin would have performed on the IMAFs previously as well. This is a good, well-matched fight here.
Yeah, very well-matched fight. Two of them, plenty of experience internationally as well as locally as well. Lisa's last fight was at the IMAF Worlds, I believe. So she's had that experience. Caitlin similarly. I think maybe a bit of a clash of styles here as well, but overall, some really good matchmaking here. I think as well as this, there is one last pro fight on the card as well that we might speak about, and that is the Roger Lopez and Andre Misiuk fight on paper, which may look like more of a mismatch than it really is. 0-4 for Roger Lopez, but a wealth of experience in the likes, and he does have a difference being, I think he's training out of SPG at the moment, and he's got a strong. He
does a lot of like K1 fighting, doesn't he? I've seen him train a lot with Damien Darker.
Yeah, and I think he used to train over in Warriors for Thai as well. Like so, he's very, very good striker, and his record doesn't do him justice. He's brought Marcin Zambala the distance. Tyrone Quinn his debut, and then obviously he fought Jordan Fury second round. He still lost, but much better. He's good opposition, and Andrei Misiuk he's lethal. Very, very good Ukrainian lad that's training out of SPG Nice, fought in the IMAFs, won the Europeans in 24, got junior world bronze in 2022, and he's a serious old prospect, one to watch, and we have to like him even more because he's got his Instagram handle is Triangle Choke Lads. So we're claiming him now, but brilliant fight. And I do like that one, and I'm very excited for it. Lightweight fight for Clan Wars.
Absolutely. March 22nd is when that Clan Wars 51 card does take place. We'll talk about it a little bit more closer to the time. I'm sure we'll have a few more fights on it as well. I'd like to finish up with last piece of news here, guys. Keith Kyo has announced that he has signed with Cage Warriors, and I for one think that's a really, really good signing. And Andy, I think we could, with that signing, expect to see him on the card in a couple of months as well. I think all of that makes sense, but a prospect like Keith Kyo mixing up with Cage Warriors is very, very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. There's a lot of we've a lot of young hot prospects coming through. We've got Conor McCarthy, Max Lally, and Keith Kyo, all of who would be in that kind of same bracket. So 2025 is going to be a very interesting time, very exciting time for the next wave, I guess, of young professionals coming through the Irish scene. And Keith Kyo, like, I know we haven't seen him fight in a bit now, but he's a killer. He's dangerous on the feet, he's dangerous on the ground, and very excited to see him back in action.
Indeed. Well, that wraps us up for episode 77 of the Auld Triangle. Thanks to everybody for listening. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and give us an old 5-star rating on Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast as well. We appreciate the support, and for everyone for tuning in. We've had a 4-week run here, lads. We'll probably take a 1-week hiatus before we come back again for the next episode. But what was a memorable week for Irish mixed martial arts? A memorable fight between Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov. finished in disappointment. I almost did. I had to take that break, but nonetheless, look at, even though Paul didn't get his hand raised, still a great performance, and as I said previously, a great representative for Irish mixed martial arts, as everybody was on that PFL card. And the only thing left for us to do is for Caoilte to see us out.
Gurmi and Mahwiv, agus slán go fóill.